Hey, everybody. Welcome to Shally's Alley. You are live, and it is April 17th, Friday, April 17th, here on Shally's Alley. And we decided to be twinning today, matching color scheme. Is black a color? My daughter says
Like
no.
absence of a color, isn't it?
Yeah, right,
Like,
something like that.
yeah.
So I guess we're matching outfits, sort of.
Yes. Yes, there we go.
Welcome, everybody, to the alley. Um, our guest today is Jenny. Goes by, you can call her JCK. That's how I was introduced. And I'm going to try and put it Jenny Cotie Kangas.
Yeah, Jenny Cotie Kangas. That's right.
Yep, that's what the JCK stands for. But she goes by JCK.
Yes.
And Jenny has a really interesting story. We met at an event. It was a ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit a couple of years ago, when Jenny was where JCK was part of Eightfold, I believe it was. And it turned out we have a pretty similar background as far as kind of how we go about our business, but we have a very different origin story. Jenny's one of those more distinctive, let's just say, voices in HR tech. And I don't mean like pedigree, which she's got plenty of that, but because of her story. 6 years ago, Jenny had a accident that caused it was a traumatic brain injury that caused complete memory loss. And when she told me that, I was like, complete, like you forgot kind of, some of your past or whatever. And no, JCK was like, no, complete memory loss. Like Control, Alt, Delete, reset, wipe your
History,
memory.
the history, how the world works, how to ride a bike, who my children were, like
How to talk, how to walk.
how to talk, how to read a menu, how to solve problems in talent acquisition and recruiting.
Everything.
I lost all of those
reset.
biases and all of my history. Yes.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. I don't know how often this happens with TBIs. Usually you hear about memory loss, but not like memory wipe,
Yeah, it's fair.
reset. So what happened was that led to you losing your fear too. You didn't have any kind of conditioning about who's supposed to be in what room, what requires permission, what is too basic, what is, and so your big takeaway, your big learning from that was that fear was not protecting anyone. It was just kind of in the way. And that kind of started you in a whole nother direction with your career. At least that's what I remember. Did I pretty much get that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I had been in talent acquisition and recruiting before my head injury and before my memory loss. And in 2020, this happened. And I had a leader who knew me beforehand. I didn't really talk very much about my memory loss early on. I do now. I'm an open book about it. But in those first 2 years, I didn't as much. And she had hired me. She's like, I know you've done talent acquisition. I know you've done recruiting before. I think you'd be really good at HR tech and experience. I need somebody who can do this very unique thing and solve this unique problem. That person doesn't exist, but you have the core skills to be able to do it. And I want to give you a shot. And so she gave me a shot. I ended up, it ended up being a journey, let's just say, that led to co-developing technology with Paradox. I lost my design bias for what good looked like, but I got really, really, really good at asking questions to understand the story.
Figure out what good look like, right?
Yeah. Well, and just being able to understand that the current state too, right? Like, because there's like, what does good look like? But then there's also like, what's going on today? And so often we use our own bias about what that process is or like what's happening or what's not happening. And I didn't have any of that. And so with, human-centered design thinking skills and UX research and UI fun and all that jazz that I had kind of learned through master classes in Clubhouse, which was an audio-only networking platform that was really common during 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't read because of my head injury. It was too hard for my brain. I had just gotten cleared to listen. Somebody invited me to Clubhouse, and I was able to be in these rooms with people from all over the world, just having conversations. And it just so happened that the topics in those rooms was exactly what I needed to learn about. And so it had dawned on me about a week earlier from that Clubhouse invitation. So I have 3 kids. And I had lost my memories of my kids, and that was really hard. So
Yeah, I mean,
my body remembered that these people were important to me. Um, but you can't, when you lose your memory, like will is not a strategy, right? So like I would sit there with these books open of pictures of my kids,
you're
and,
like, I want to remember, but that doesn't mean anything.
I would literally try to force my brain to remember, and it would end up hurting my brain, and I would end up actually passing out or having a seizure. And so it was stunting my recovery too. But it dawned on me one day, because I was like, this isn't working. I need to try something different. When I actually sat with the problem and looked at it from all angles, I recognized that just because my memories were gone on my kids, their memories were inside of them. And if I could ask
Oh,
questions, I could get those memories to come out, right? And I didn't know at the time, but there's an answer for that in business. It's user experience research, right?
right. You were the application that they had experienced.
So it's true, but like that's the answer in business, right? And so
Mhm.
when I went into Clubhouse, something really, really powerful was happening in spring of 2020, right? The world had to go digital overnight.
Yeah, yeah. Whether you like it or
And
not.
whether you liked it or not, and the skills for UX and UI were not democratized or normal in this space
Mm.
yet, right? And so what ended up happening was some of the most incredible voices and brains who understood how to get this right went to Clubhouse so that they could teach people how to get this. And like they would have these massive rooms of thousands of people, right? And I stumbled into at this very time where I needed to essentially or regain the memories back for my kids. And this was a masterclass on how to do this. And it also ended up being really fortunate at that time that I didn't have a design bias for who could ask questions of really smart people or who was allowed
So
to,
you just
or if there
asked.
were stupid questions. And so I would go up on stage and ask. And then when the questions became uh, valuable for me, I systemized it. And I had like specific questions I would ask these leaders. And I ended up getting a master class in human centered design. And I had no desire to apply that to business or
Right.
anything else except for
Because
the
you,
situation with my kids.
I mean,
That
you
was
just
the whole
started out with
reason.
like, you didn't even know what TA was, or I can't even imagine. Most people
Nothing.
have some
Yeah.
sort of, underlying bias, pro or against or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but like you just had none there at that point, and it just not having. I mean, it's almost like you get to see clearly because you have no biases, no filters at that point. But at the same time, you're like, why would anybody want to do this?
And well, that's the great thing is like when you lose your social conditioning, you don't understand the why would anybody would do this. You just see a problem and
You're just
you're
like,
like,
oh,
it's a problem
okay,
that's got to be solved. So like, let's go. But it
interesting.
became a blessing for me in a lot of ways in business because if you remember, in March of 2020, the world changed
Yeah, a little bit.
overnight,
Hmm.
and especially in talent acquisition, right? Like the systems that we had historically relied on to be able to get and find talent didn't necessarily track to a world post 2020. Like we had a change in a lot of different ways. And I was lucky in the fact that I didn't have a design bias for how we had solved problems before.
How are you supposed to do
So
it?
how you're supposed to do it,
Right.
right? Like there was no supposed to. It was just understand what's going on and then reverse engineer something that's going to work, right? And so a lot of my peers would get stuck on this is you have to go to Indeed, you have to go to LinkedIn, you have to use the ATS. You like, and I had none of that. I was able to just really get good at understanding what the problem was and then reverse engineer something to solve that problem and then constantly iterating at every step because you only get the blueprint once you choose it again. And it's actually through failing typically that you glean the art blueprint to get it right.
Yeah,
And
that's why
so,
blueprints are. That's
anyways,
why blueprints exist. Otherwise, you have to
yes.
build it and tear it down and build it and tear down. But I want to hit the pause button on something real quick, and it sort of dawned on me, and I think I had this epiphany before too. So maybe it's a re-epiphany if that's even a thing. So you're in these rooms, for people who don't know, this app. I don't know what happened in Clubhouse, but it was audio. It was like literally radio in a way, in that, you could turn it on and jump into a room and listen, or you could actually engage. So it was like radio where you could actually have a two-way conversation. But what I
Mhm.
was thinking is, you're learning about user experience and user-driven design, and you are not seeing anything because you're listening in audio. And in fact, at the time, if I'm not mistaken, screens were giving you problems. So
Yeah, they caused me to
you
pass
had
out every
user
seizure.
experience with no like screen.
Oh, it's interesting. I never thought about that before. I learned user experience through audio, not through visual.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah,
Like,
that's
because
really
user
interesting.
experience is very heavily like, there was a time when I was fond of and had the general idea that I would go into human computer interface design, some many years ago, HCI, and a lot of that had to do with design, which is the visual design, and that's the part where I don't do very well because I'm colorblind. And
Interesting.
it just, if anybody goes to tsiuniversity.com, they will immediately know that I'm colorblind, because I've been told by everybody that those colors are awful. But I don't know that. And I wrote the website, right? So when I went into that business and to explore the possibilities, and it was all about the design, I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I thought it was something else. I was thinking it's how do humans interact with machines, not how do you visually look at a screen and click on things. I mean, I thought that was design, not human interface. But anyways, it just hit me that you also went into that, with a different perspective. So yet another interesting little um, happy accident in our trajectories being somewhat similar. Of course, I was HCI, not UX. But anyway, so one size doesn't fit all.
Correct. One
Yeah,
size fits one.
one size fits one.
Yes.
What is the most dangerous assumption then in strategy and design and leadership, um, that you can make?
That your lived experience is the same as somebody else's lived experience.
Oh yeah,
So we have a huge tendency to apply mirror bias.
even
So
if we
when
don't
we
think it's
in
bias.
it's because it's our lived experience, right? So like I see this problem. This is where the
Why
problem. This
wouldn't
is most
anybody else say
important
it's a
to me.
problem?
Why wouldn't anybody else? Because we are smart people,
What do you
right?
mean it doesn't matter to you?
Um,
How could it not matter to you?
exactly, exactly. But like the most important piece with this is it's about getting it right. It's not about being right. Right? And so, in order to get it right, we have to validate what right is, and right is subjective to the individual organization, the situation, the problem, the human, right? And so, what we have to do is be able to um, first be able to map what right is or what good is. And that's usually doing the research side of it, right? And again, it's not a one size fits all. And there's a huge tendency, especially in talent acquisition and sourcing and HR, to apply one size fits all solutions
Oh, I see it
to,
all the time.
oh God, it's
I
insane.
see it with ATSs.
Oh,
I
all the
ran
time.
foundation. I don't know if I told you this. I ran a 501c3 foundation for many years, 7 8 years actually, that was dedicated to helping people that had been displaced find employment in our business. Getting into the business of sourcing and recruiting. And one of the biggest populations that we served, where we made the most difference, was with the blind and visually impaired. Um, and the bias is there. So a graduate of the program, I hired them as an intern for 6 months at a company where I was working, and they used Greenhouse. And he wasn't visually impaired; he was blind. He had the hardest time using the software, because even basic things that are provided by, like for example, your screen reader, Macs are fantastic at this. The screen readers couldn't understand what was going on because the
Mhm.
elements were
They weren't
iconic, as
accessible.
in the button to edit a window was a pencil, and it wasn't called a pencil.
It wasn't
So
coded back in the back end,
yeah, and
right?
he had to fight.
Properly.
Like, he was like, "How do I edit?" Well, it's click on the pencil. What pencil? There's no pencil. I don't see a pencil. How could you not see a So and nobody really. It doesn't occur to anybody to think about it. And that's just one aspect of perception, which is a visual connection, right? And so
Yeah.
if you and someone else have different visual perceptions, you can see and they can't, fundamentally things are going to be very different. Have you ever, this might be of interest, have you ever heard of the subject semiotics?
No, I don't think I have.
That. So when I was interested in HCI and discovered that, color was a problem. I mean, I knew it was for me, but like it just wasn't going to work in HCI. I started looking into things deeper and deeper and eventually got to the root of all of it, which is essentially, some people will argue, the root of all communication, and that is semiotics. Semiotics essentially is the science of studying signs and symbols and how meaning is created and interpreted. So it's not about words or the root origin of words, which is incredibly biased, right? Words are affected by our environment just as much as our environment affect, it's a two-way street. But symbols and in semiotics and meaning is interpreted outside of language, earlier, if you will, than language. Like even before you started, getting some of your abilities back, you were still interpreting the world and you were interpreting it semiotically because you didn't have reading or, word comprehension. And so it's at the root of all that. What's fascinating about it is that in the study of semiotics, there are some fundamental, human equalities where certain symbols are interpreted the same. And then there are some very fundamental ones where that is not the case. And it is the biggest prejudice that people have. Because, for example, this is my favorite one. There's lots of examples, but this is my favorite one. Red. When I say red, what do you assimilate with red or think of red, or what is red invoke?
Stop sign.
Stop sign. Okay. Which would probably be what? Caution, a warning.
Yeah.
Right. In other cultures, red is luck. It's fortune. So in some cultures, red would be warning, stop, even if the sign doesn't say stop. Red lights, for example, on a stoplight, right? In other cultures, red is welcoming. Red means, ooh, this is really, you could become wealthy with this. This is good fortune. And so something as fundamental as color, and this is one of the reasons that really attracted me, was because I couldn't see color. And I found it fascinating that people associated red with warning in some cultures and luck in others, because to me, red means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, because you can't see. That's fascinating. And it goes back to that thing where good is subjective, right? Good is subjective, and what something means is subjective to, again, that individual person or that individual culture.
Except in semiotics, there's some fundamental commonalities that are very human transferable, but there's not a lot of them, and that's the root of all miscommunication. So it's kind of like, wow,
fascinating.
Yeah, it is. I mean, doesn't have anything to do with user design, but I do apply that.
It does, though.
In talent. Yeah, it does. Okay.
I think it absolutely does, because our goal is to design, right, for end users that don't necessarily fit the same shoes as us. Like I think you can see Iron Man is right there, right? I'm a big Marvel fan. Universal design, right? So like ultimately these experiences that you're building, I always joke, I was like, I build Iron Man suit for HR technology, but it's really important because I'm taking a lot of different tools and systems and processes. But at the end of the day, I need to make sure that the suit fits the person, the user, right? I might have people who are super, super advanced in certain areas and super, super not advanced in other areas. I mean, some of the systems I've had to build in the past, like, or people who have never recruited before, right? When I was building with Paradox, I was building for salon and hairstylists recruiting, right? So the people who ran a salon, like a Supercuts, they sometimes didn't have any background in talent acquisition. So the suit that I was building, this digital experience, it had to fit somebody who came from that background versus that other background. So I think part of like what I was hearing from you with this is, again, like our how might look different, but when we build, we have to reverse engineer. So all like I always think back to Torrin Ellis when in a clubhouse room
Right.
before I like knew anybody in this space, right? Like Torrin Ellis was in a room and he was challenging me on the importance of when you build universally or when you build for inclusion, you design for the exception instead of the rule, which is really important because a lot of the times when we build systems and experiences, we engineer it for the rule. But going back to the blind example, right? When I was co-developing technology with Paradox, there was another clubhouse room where there was a blind recruiter that was in that room. And I was really excited about what we were building and it was different. We're using conversational AI before conversational AI and AI was sexy, right? And he's like, that's all great, but how does the experience work for me? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'm blind. And I'm like, and then I was like, well, technically the likelihood that I'm going to have a blind hairstylist is not very often, but it still begs the like, it's still important because I might have a blind applicant on the corporate side. Right. And so I went back to Paradox and they're like, oh yeah, we have an ability so that Olivia, who's the conversational AI agent or not agent, conversational AI, could assess whether or not you were using a screen reader. And if it assessed that you were using screen reader, it would automatically respond in voice instead of in text. Simple
That's
thing,
smart. Yeah.
right? But again, they had designed for the exception, not for the rule. And when you do that, when you're intentional about designing for different cultures, for different experiences, the outcome of that is you get more people. You end up with more diversity because
you do.
you're
That's
allowing
inherently
people
diverse.
to,
Yeah. But think about it. So you mentioned armor. Let me break that one down for you. From a semiotic perspective, armor has different meanings. There's a signifier. That's the material element, right? The armor's form. In some cases and cultures, the armor is seen as protective covering. But it's also a triadic sign system. So that means that some physical components are signifiers or representative of, say, social values. So, for example, there is armor like the Hussars in Austria that wore these long feathers. That armor is not protective.
Okay, hold on. Real pause for a second because I don't have my memory and so I don't have history. Can you give me like 5 seconds on who these people in Austria were? Because I have not bumped up against this part yet. And I genuinely am like always wanting to learn.
So Hussars were the knights of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Okay, cool.
In the British, English, the western side of Europe, the knights were heavily armored with chainmail and things like that.
So it's like around like King Arthur time? Like what time-ish is this?
Yeah, medieval times, right?
Okay,
all the way up until World War I.
Whoa, that's a big stretch.
Yeah, it was the royalty warrior, the warrior class, the higher class warrior of the eastern side of that Germanic kingdom, in Austria and Hungary and that side. So horseback and armor, yes, shields, spears, swords, but also this other symbolism that was a rally for troops. It was it indicated what it was like heraldry, right? So instead of flags, they had these feathers, sort of. They're not exactly feathers, but in that case, it means something completely different. It's still armor. And on top of that, it also signifies or can signify royalty or identity. So even something as simple as armor, where some people might go, hey, that armor is ridiculous. It's not going to protect you from anything. Samurai armor perhaps might be a little bit more familiar.
All of it is. It's so fascinating that you bring this up, though, because my first experience of what armor was had nothing to do with armor you wore, and it was actually armor and systems to like create digital notes around PII and stuff like that. So like that was my literal first model
Safety
of what armor was.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
It not like the knights of the route. Like I learned that afterwards, which is fascinating. Yeah.
So it symbolizes protection or safety. It symbolizes aggression or power. It symbolizes status. It symbolizes, right? So even something as fundamental as protective gear or armor has very different interpretations depending on where you go. Samurais had armor that wasn't really designed to protect them from what in the Western world we would consider armor. it was wooden in some cases because it was protecting them from something different. It was protecting them from slashing, not from,
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's just fundamentally different. And so if you apply that, it gets pretty challenging to try to decipher how to interpret a system in a way that is universally acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Enough to make you crazy anyway.
Well, I didn't know what crazy was. I did the first time because I had built the essentially a conversational AI tool to be able to help my organization be able to find talent in 2020. And then they're like, well, you did good on this, so we're going to give you the corporate side, which was my first time ever seeing an ATS. And it was an ATS that we're all familiar with. Yeah, and it was, I mean, just the deep dive on that as a first person, like kind of looking back at it, it's kind of comical. But I remember being like starkly aware of the fact when I was looking at an ATS that jobs had skills instead of humans having skills. Like the entire architecture was wrong. And it was just like, this is backwards.
You just yeah. So that's right. Add to that the life cycle of an ATS, and the name of it is in complete dissonance with what it does. Yeah. It's not an applicant tracking system because it doesn't track applicants.
Correct.
It tracks jobs.
Yep.
Applicants are part of the life cycle of a job. Job opens, job is filled, job is closed. Applicants are the pieces that go into the job.
Yes. It's just yeah. There is some interesting aha moments.
So now you're thinking skills. Wait, people have skills. Why would a job have skills? Well,
or it's like, and you have nothing like that is actually good. So that's how I ended up becoming. I instantly saw like the fundamental issue with, I guess, like how we structured around talent.
Like other people.
Yeah, it's true. But I also was able to uniquely understand exactly what Eightfold did and how to articulate it. Oh. And so what ended up happening was a lot of people would fall out of the process from like a sales standpoint. And then somehow or another, they would get to me and I would spend 30 minutes with them and I would explain all this and it would be like an aha moment. They're like, okay. And then they would transition to going to buy Eightfold.
Because you articulated it in a way that made the connection.
Made sense, right? Like you connect the dots in a way that works. So I ended up going to Eightfold for about a year with the goal of being able to democratize kind of like how I looked at it. Didn't end up happening that way, but that's it. I guess it brings me up to what I get excited about, right? That we have right now happening is what Shelley and I are talking about fundamentally is the systems that we've architected around things like talent acquisition and HR. They didn't make sense.
No.
Fundamentally, just from like a basic architecture standpoint, they didn't make sense. And now with the way that technology is evolving, and with tools like agentic AI and things like Claude and otherwise, now people like me or people like Shally can actually build the technology, which is really cool. And that's what I do for work now.
It facilitates
it makes it a heck of a lot easier, but you still have to think differently about how it's done.
Exactly. Yes. And you know what the biggest gap that I found is? Imagination. It's ideating what you want the system to do.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. And people, again, they have a design bias. Like I don't have that because I lost my memory, right? But every time that you have used one of these systems historically is informing what your body or your model, right, thinks good is like. So then when somebody asks you art of the possible, you start with that framework that you've only ever experienced. It's a lot harder to go like absolute whiteboard and like, how would we want this to look? It's not something people are always the most comfortable with. By, I guess, benefit of a massive head injury, didn't have that. So I could do the research, understand what good actually was. Because again, good is subjective to the individual, organization, leader, whatever. Once you understand what that is, then you can actually really, really map that and define that. And then you can reverse engineer to solve for that. So that's like a lot of what we did when it was after McHire. And I was like one of the first users after McHire, after McDonald's for what we were doing at Paradox. And I came to it again with this lack of a design bias for how we solve these problems before. And a lot of those what ifs and questions ended up getting built into the tech. And there were questions people had never asked of the process.
Or they
right?
had just never voiced it to the right person.
Or they had not voiced it to the right
Or
person. Or they
frustrated
didn't
with it,
think it
didn't
was
know how to-
worth it. Or they
Yeah.
didn't think the change
Or
could
it
be
could be
had.
done,
Like
or- yep.
it's friction. We always have friction there, right? You
Yeah.
just get used to it too. And yeah, I think, and it's a key piece right now with everything that we've got going on is yes, you want to understand. We always talk about like mapping step 0 before being able to deploy or even touch AI. It's like you have to start with your map of what you've got today.
Yeah.
But then when you're rethinking about like what does good look like walk away from the map for a second and really do some of that creative ideation and then being able to reverse engineer the process to get to that point. I'm monologuing now.
I think
get a
what
little
does good
excited
look
about this
like is
stuff.
a good question, but honestly, when it comes to like vibe coding and being able to,
Yeah,
because
it's true.
I'm creating apps and writing scripts and stuff like that. Yeah, and
It's fun.
Chrome extensions and stuff like that. And honestly, I really couldn't give two beeps about some of the quote unquote UI stuff. It's a button. You click on it. It does its job. You
Yes.
couldn't
Does
do
it
that
work?
before.
Yes or no? Yes.
Yeah. The thing it does now was not possible before is now possible now. They don't care if it's blue or green.
Correct. Oh gosh,
Thank God,
lipstick. We don't like
I don't know
lipstick.
if
We
it's
like
blue or green.
infrastructure. Yeah, good point. Good point. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
So when
Yeah.
people say it's the blue button, I'm like, hold
What's
on a
your
second.
favorite thing that you have like built so far with the
You're gonna crack up.
fun stuff? I'm cracking up. What is it?
It is a widget that instantly identifies any color on the page when I point my cursor at it.
Oh my God, that's so smart.
'Cause I
What
don't
an
know what it
amazing accessibility tool. Are you going to sell it? That's like actually really legit.
I don't know what it is. Hey, it's the yellow roll in the spreadsheet. Yellow? Huh?
Oh my God, that's so smart.
Oh,
That's cool.
I was gonna ask. I had a couple of questions prepared for you, but now that now that we got started on a slightly different topic, I wanted to ask. So you ran into HR and you ran into TA and had to like relearn what it is, and didn't have any assumptions, and then you ran into sourcing. I'm assuming at that point you must have already been in the space and doing the job and TA and things like that. I can't imagine sourcing was one of the first things you ran into. When you ran into sourcing, were you like, what in the world?
No, it just clicked. That's why I loved it.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because
this I think
is something that doesn't click for so many people who think sourcing is type keyword into LinkedIn, hit enter.
No. So again, I rebuilt my life using human-centered design principles and design thinking. Like I didn't have a map of who I was, and I had to systematically be able to essentially create that thing.
Wait. Okay, so of course, when you need something, you go find it. Hence, sourcing clicked.
So when I looked at talent and the art of finding somebody, I approached it the same way I had built out kind of who I was from a skills standpoint, from an understanding standpoint, from a preferences standpoint, from like essentially it's like a blueprint. I viewed it as systematically understanding what the missing puzzle pieces of who you're looking for, and then reverse engineering to go find that puzzle piece out there in the world. And what I had been doing post memory loss was essentially recrafting the puzzle piece of who I was. So I saw it as the inverse action to what it was that I was doing in life. And questions are such an important piece of that. And one of the things that I thought was fascinating was a lot of what I was seeing with sourcing was people jumping to go look for somebody before actually identifying what good was.
Yeah.
So like the intake being such an important, critical piece of that part, and being able to, again, truly define and make sure that our understanding of what good is identical before we jump out of those gates, right? Because it's so, so, so important. And then honestly, building in systems that are going to allow you to drift and shift, because we're still taking an educated guess on what good is. Usually we don't actually figure out what good is until we figured out what bad is. And then that's where, like, again, we're refining that puzzle piece. I view the entire sourcing strategy, like, or that concept is, like, again, directly tied to what I was doing in life. And then I also thought differently, because I don't remember a world where AI didn't exist. And like,
Oh, okay.
because I'm only a 6-year-old, right? So
Well, yeah, I was thinking, I was thinking I don't either, but then, I mean, it's always existed for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's so funny. We were with Robin and John at HR Tech once, and it was like an after party or something. And they made this motion of like this about referring to a check. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, when we had to like run checks. Like, what do you mean when you had to run checks manually? And they were like, we had to like manually like the machine. And I was like, wait, what? Because I don't remember a world where any of that happened. And so the idea of like calculating out people's like their pay, like, it broke my
like
brain.
an abacus.
I was like, this is so crazy. Like, I don't understand. And similar to like, it was crazy to me. But like, again, like, the way that we've done things has changed.
So, okay, now we can circle back to one of the questions that I had pre-planned for you, because I definitely was dying to ask you this. So you basically rebuilt your understanding of TA. Well, I wouldn't say you rebuilt. You built your understanding of TA from scratch, because there was no rebuilding it. It was zero. So you built it from scratch.
And when I did it, I was also like, I was uniquely curious, because curiosity, if you think about it, like, kids ask, I was just watching Jay Olson from Medtronic did an amazing presentation at Minturn this week, and it was on Clue. So it was this framework for curiosity. One of the things that are his challenges is like, children ask like 300 questions a day.
Yeah.
Adults ask like 20, right? And children ask a lot of questions because they're trying to understand the world, but we stopped doing that as adults. I'm sorry. It was not my intention to like lay offense on you, Shelly.
You and I both ask a lot of questions, don't we?
But that's important, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And it's super important to, again, when good is subjective, your job is to understand somebody else's good and then go find that good. You have to be asking those questions. And there's not stupid questions either, right? Like, sometimes, and I think that's one of the I guess, blessings again that came from, it's like, I didn't know it was a stupid question or wasn't. I just saw a problem, and I saw like an opportunity for something to go astray. And so I'd ask the question and raise my hand.
Well, I can definitely define what a stupid question is. A stupid question is one that you already asked and didn't listen to the answer.
That's also a stupid question. Yeah. But
that's about it. Nothing else is, man. Pretty much, like, you already asked that. Were you not listening last time I told you?
Yeah. So that's my roundabout the way of being able to explain my sourcing. And I think there's another piece to it too, though. Remember, I was at because like, I'm uniquely curious, right? So I would ask questions to try to understand what technology, like what these different vendors and technologies were, and then I would understand that blueprint. And then when I went to explain I would ask questions of people, and I didn't know that this is weird. And when I would identify that they had a problem, I'd be like, oh, did you know there's a technology that could do it? And I would go walk that person over there, because I didn't know that was not how you do things. Right. And so I was connecting dots about like who fit where. It was like, I have a systems mind. And
people were like, I didn't know this existed. And you're like, well,
recreated that. But also, I didn't know that there was like this influencer circle, and that there was like speakers and all these things. I was just uniquely curious and just went and like tried to understand it, asked questions, and made friends. And so I also kind of jumped into a space that I didn't, I started speaking and people started listening, and then started speaking a lot more things. It's just kind of funny, kind of looking at it in history.
So that's what I wanted to ask you about, perspective wise, right? So with you rebuilding or building your understanding of TA from scratch, what is something that you see now that you see as obviously very broken, but people with experience will defend it till the end?
I'm not going to have a popular response on this.
No, please don't.
But I
That is exactly why I invited you to the show.
yeah, I think I think there is a huge shift coming, and I think that shift largely centers around um, shifting from buying technology and trying to shoehorn our processes into something that doesn't fit us, into hiring small, tiny teams that go and truly understand the problem and the use case and reverse engineer that technology or that build. I think that's where things are going, and especially with kind of rethinking how does the world work when it comes to AI. Like there are so many areas. I think I didn't answer my thing earlier, but my favorite thing I built so far was for a client of mine, and I won't get into specifics of it, but I built an agent that does layoff intelligence research, and so it scans and mines a lot of different places to be able to understand where are there layoffs in the tech industry. It consolidates those, it maps it to their talent profiles, and then it actually builds outreach content that's specific to the role and the individual, that's in their tone of voice, within their brand guidelines, like within everything, and it automatically connects into their CRM system. Like that's the kind of cool stuff you can do with some of this technology when you have people who truly understand the work. And we couldn't historically do that, right? Like, and so
I mean, I built something like that in 2005, 2006.
Of course you did, because you're freaking Shally. I built it like in a couple hours, like sitting at my cabin.
This was not a couple hours. This was months. It was very complex, and it broke a lot, and it required lots of maintenance, but it worked. Yeah. The problem is that people weren't using it. So we put all this time and effort into I put a lot of time and effort into making this intelligent system, and then it was providing the outreach messaging and everything, and people just they kept doing the same messaging that they'd been doing before. So I want to peel back a little bit. You said shifting from buying the monolithic technology to essentially customizing their own. So tell me, how exactly is that different than what crafts people have been doing forever?
I mean, Metas or all. I mean, a lot of the big Goliaths have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, if you're a woodworker, right? You're a wood crafts person.
Oh yeah.
You will make your own handles for maybe store-bought files, but you'll replace the handles. So we may not be forging the steel ourselves. You're not a blacksmith, but we're customizing the tools. We'll build our own workbenches. We've been doing this for a long time. So I kind of hear what you're saying.
My desk is literally on a workbench, by the way.
Yeah.
It's on a rolling workbench, and it goes up and down.
With wheels? Oh, man, now I need to do that.
I can move around, but I rebuilt my house from the studs out. It's how I got my brain back online, was actually learning construction.
Wheels on my desk. I never thought of that.
It's amazing. It's so nice. And they're heavy-duty wheels. It's a Husky tool bench, but I digress. Keep going.
I have wheels on my chair, but the desk doesn't go anywhere. It goes up and down.
They're heavy-duty wheels, too. Like, this thing is
do this,
beast.
But...
Yeah.
So we're basically returning. I'm kind of hearing we're going back to basics, as in like we're going back to where it was. Let me rewind. Software got democratized, and then it got undemocratized. So for a while, software was something that lots of people could do, and launched lots of little apps, and then all of a sudden there was this huge mass merger, and then software became something that only the big software companies did because of the scale or whatever. And so you're saying we're kind of going back to software being democratized again. And ironically, if you think about this from a computing systems point of view, we did go from what was called fat client to thin client. And so we basically went full circle. The original, when I was, in college, our computers were what we called terminals, as in it was a dumb piece of equipment with a screen and a keyboard that did really nothing but connect to some other machine. And that machine was the computer. They all connected to VAX systems and so on. And so that's where I started. Then it went to computers on your desk that had all the processing power. And so we literally are now back to terminals again. These computers you see out there that, like, you know, the little micro PCs and stuff, they have some stuff on board, but 80-90% of what they do is cloud-based. So again, thin client. So we went from thin client to fat client, back to thin client again. And what you're saying is we went from make your own software.
We went from build to buy and borrow. And now with the skills, we can go back to build, but we can go back to build in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Because now we can leverage agentic tools to be able to help us with I mean, for example, hypothetically, right? Like most software companies, most people will be like, oh, compliance is so important, so I have to buy something, right? But ultimately, in today's day and world, you could build the technology like an ATS, and you could build an agentic aspect of it that's going to monitor emerging case law in order to see if there's any aspects of your experience that need to be updated. You can have like that experience, like that specific piece, when it finds something of value, flagged to legal. Legal can then go and approve, yes or no, we want to do this, or like if yes, it can take the exact code that it recommends to the software team, and the software team can actually reverse it, like flip it back into the system like this. Or for example, brand voice is something evolving. You can have, and like in today's day and age, if you built a system like this, and let's say marketing changed the brand tone guidelines to slightly different, you can have that in their system same day. And now every single solitary, everything that comes from your system is now in line with your brand, right? Like it's a different way of being able to think about these things.
It is. That's a different, it's a different approach. It's a lot more dynamic and flexible. But tell me this, one of the biggest gaps in AI, what we call AI, which technically isn't really AI, but you know, for lack of a common language, what we're calling this generative, you know, technology from machine learning. One of the biggest gaps in it is judgment and risk judgment, or judging risk. I'm wondering, is that something machines can really do?
Yeah, sometimes better than we can. So it depends. You never want it to completely take away risk, right? But like with some of the stuff that I'm building, and like within my handoff documents, right? This technology is evolving so ridiculously fast that one of the important things that I have within my like artifacts and grounding documents is for like the AI to go and QA itself and give me opportunities where like it should, like if there's something based on the handout document or like what I'm trying to build that now is available in the technology, bring it back to me so that I can consider whether or not to like build it into my code, right? Like, okay, so in that situation,
I see. It's detecting the possibility of risk. It's detecting the risk, and it's reporting it back to a human, and the human has to assess and judge.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
There are some things that are lower, like that. Yes, like you could have it see it and you could have it act like without necessarily needing a human in the loop. But most of the time, I don't know. I think the human should be in the loop.
Yeah, because I mean, this is what I was thinking. Okay, the possibility that this law will get passed and it'll affect our process in such a way that it would be worthwhile stopping our workflow to make an edit to the workflow is, you know, I don't know, 10%, right? But the cost of that stopping the workflow is not really worth the investment of fixing the error. So in the off chance, in the 10% chance that this XYZ happens, we actually probably would still ignore it. And a human would make that decision. But a machine would have to, I'm assuming, have some sort of tolerance process that would say if a risk is above or below. Yeah, otherwise, you know, it's just going to paralyze itself with analysis, which I think is what most traders do today anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Sorry.
No,
I could sometimes have an opinion.
That's why we are friends, right? We have opinions, and sometimes they don't match everybody else's.
Yeah, okay. I wonder why that's the case with me. I didn't lose my memory, but I definitely lost my sanity quite a while ago.
Oh goodness.
What is it that you think in these technology stacks that are out there. And yes, I know I'm going back to the buying and renting and monolithic software and all that.
Mhm.
But let's face it, once you've paid, $1 million for something, it's not like you're just going to unplug it unless something way better comes around and doesn't cost anything. But
Or unless you hire me and I navigate you out of your contract, right?
yeah, well, that's a different story. And
That's a different story.
yeah, are you an attorney now? Because that's what it's going to take.
I've gotten out of a lot of contracts and
Yeah.
saved a lot of millions of dollars in said contracts too.
Well,
'Cause I'm
let's
good
say
at
that we
part,
don't want to
but
get out of the contract, but we have this stack. What is your opinion on the most common mistake that turns a technology stack into a problem instead of a solution?
using the map for how you've done things before as a model for how you're going to implement into the technology today. So I think that's one of the universal biggest issue that I see is people take again the map or process of how they've done it before. And when they
Oh,
get to a new technology, they turn around and be like, build me this
oh my
instead
God. Oh,
of,
that's not even funny. Okay, I just got what you
yeah.
said.
So I
Okay.
think that's the fun, like, and often when they do that, right, they're customizing that technology in a way that takes it off of the ability to get updates and other things like that. And so, like, there's so many reasons why that is not the right thing to do. And what you want to do is really understand how does this technology work, right? What could good look like with this technology? And then you've reverse engineer your process to be able to live within that. But again, we have a heavy design bias of like ABC, this is how it's done before, and I've got to do ABC. And
Mhm.
sometimes doing ABC essentially breaks the technology and its ability to get
Makes it
updates in the
useless
future.
or less useful. And you're now back to the problems
Yes,
you had before, which is why you got rid of that technology in the first place.
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I think mine is.
okay.
Yeah.
Heebie-jeebies. All right. So
I know it's serious. Like,
it is
and for
serious.
those of you who are watching this, like, there's a reason that I mean, these are multi-million-dollar mistakes, um, and it comes down to like
I think it just dampens innovation straight up. Like,
100% dampens innovation because innovation is a mirror of how things have been done before. I'm sorry, but a mirror of how things have been done before
is
is
not how
not
you come to the
innovative.
future.
And it
Hence
also
why
isn't
usually
taking the
paradigms.
way it's been done before and taking one piece of that equation and updating it. That is not innovative.
Right.
Innovative is starting at the end and
That's
reverse engineering
iterative.
something different.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
iterative at least.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You get me. This is why
But
we're friends.
um so but then this scalable scalable infrastructure, what does it actually mean in terms of um ownership, right? Because, well, yeah, let me just stop right there.
What does it mean in terms of ownership? I think it's
Yeah,
interesting because I think we're also seeing a shift where
there too. Okay.
there too, where the system lived with the person who managed the system, right? So
Right.
hypothetically, like it may have been a cross section of people. It could have been the person at the vendor who helped configure this in a way but didn't
Mhm.
document anything. It could have been the user in the organization who understood this, or it could have been somebody from like a big four or something that helped to advocate for how it was put in. But regardless, those people, essentially the systems, um, I guess the brains or the blueprint of the system, it lived with individuals. And I think now with the way that AI is changing, is ownership can go back to the actual organization. It should be cross-functional teams and AI that's helping to map these things. Because you don't want to, I mean, I'm the perfect example of what happens when the builder leaves the room, right? Like, I literally left the room in my own life and I had no history of like who I was or how the world worked. Similar to like if somebody who owns your HRIS system walks out and you have no systems around that, you're kind of lost and you're having to rebuild, right? Now, like, hypothetically, if AI existed the way that it does now, before my memory loss happened, I would have had a blueprint of who I was and what things I liked and
Oh,
what I
okay.
didn't
I
like,
see what you're saying.
right? Anyways, I'm monologuing again, but yeah, that's
No,
my answer.
I get where you're going with that. So,
Yeah,
okay. Well, I think we actually stepped a little bit over time, but I did want to ask you one last question
sure.
that maybe this will make this your closing question, but definitely not your last question because you're gonna have to come back now
Oh,
that
I
I
love it.
got you. Um,
I will
so
always come back, Shelly, whenever you want. It's awesome. This is fun. And
what
hopefully my computer will work too, because like for what you guys have not seen is my
the
screen
flickering?
that's in front of me was flickering and then I eventually turned it off. So now my camera is here and I'm looking here, but Shelly is right here. So it's really weird because I can't actually see his face. So I'm trying to maintain eye contact. So
Yeah, I
next
do
time
see
that
the
will be
flickering,
fixed.
but nobody noticed. Nobody noticed it.
Yes, yes.
Um, so here's my question: what's the mistake that TA teams typically make or are about to make with AI that they'll regret? I mean, there might be mistakes they don't regret. So what's the big mistake they'll regret in terms of AI?
Oh gosh.
Give us a warning.
Yeah, so I think first warning, how you've experienced AI historically has shaped how you're going to experience it today. And what I mean by that is all the narratives that you've experienced surrounding AI have helped to form essentially the blueprint of what AI is or what it can do within you, right? So you may have grown up with the Jetsons, you may have grown up seeing is it Skynet Terminator guy, right? Like that's one of them. Robots taking over the world, whatever it is. Um, all of those have, in a way, again, framed here's what AI can do for you. I think one of the things that I see where people could go wrong is letting those models define what AI actually can do for you. Um, because at the end of the day, like fear can hold us back in those things. Like I got really freaking good at AI, partially because I had none of the social conditioning of it taking my job
What
or
it's
that
supposed to, right?
aliens could take over the world or
Why should you be
whatever it
afraid of it
is,
or whatever?
right?
Right.
It was just a tool and I wanted to understand like all the edges of how this tool could be used. But I think what people forget is that one of the best lenses for how to use a tool is the AI itself. And so being able to be really specific with like what you've got going on and then actually ask it, like if you give it all the clarity and all the context and grounding and then ask the AI for 5 different ways to solve that problem, a lot of the time in my personal experience, I get back things I never would have thought of before. Right. So instead of asking the AI for exactly what I think I want, asking it to check our lens and see if there's anything that we may not have thought of too, I think is an important piece.
Yeah.
But I think all that kind of boils down to don't let fear dictate the use of these tools.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in front of you. I'm a 6-year-old, right? I literally am 6 years old in an adult's body. I'm really freaking good at AI. And I have nothing more than the last couple of years to prove for it. Like this is a skill, right? It's a
Yeah.
skill
It's definitely
anybody
learning.
can learn,
Yep.
and it's gotten so much easier to learn it too. And so, like, choose to begin with it. And when you hit stuff where you don't necessarily get
Ask it.
things right, you got to tell it. Like, in
Tell them that.
because
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. Ask it.
yeah, tell the AI because
Like,
it's
what are you talking
trying to
about?
give you good, and a lot of the time like we don't tell it when it hits on bad, and that's one of the most important things. Like constraints are a
Yeah.
superpower. You have to make sure that you're defining those constraints and not just living them in your brain. So that's a very long answer.
Very good. No, I've gotten mad at some of the, conversations like, "You're not getting it. This is terrible. Why are you doing this to me?" So, yeah,
Yes,
I totally get
exactly.
it. But then that's how it improves. Like, just like I said,
It has to. Its goal is to get it right. If you don't tell it when it got it wrong or how it got it
that's it.
wrong,
Just
you're
thinks it's,
only giving
"Oh,
it
this
like
is
one of
great.
the guardrails and then it's going to
Nailed it."
test, right? Yeah. Yep.
No, you didn't. Oh, man. All right, JCK. So we're gonna have to do this again. Hope you
Yes.
have a fabulous weekend and
Thank you
everybody.
for having me too.
Yeah,
And thanks for everybody who's watched this live or is watching it on replay. We
at
appreciate
least
you
2
for
people
taking
watched
some
it. Yeah,
time.
more than
Amazing.
likely.
I love it.
I
That's
mean,
awesome.
myself and at least one other person
Love it.
watching. Well,
I
the
love
3
it.
people, you, myself, and at least one other person.
That's
But
funny.
yeah, so folks, be kind to yourselves, and we will see you back here in Shelly's Alley 2 weeks from now, because next week I am out. I'm gonna skip a day.
Ooh,
That doesn't happen very often, but yeah, ask me
well,
where I'm going.
where are you going?
Jazz Fest.
What's Jazz Fest?
It's the New Orleans Music Festival.
Oh my God, that sounds so cool.
Yep.
That is really cool.
Yep.
That is really, really
I'll let you
cool.
know
I hope
about
you
it.
have a great time.
I have no other choice. I mean, you can't not have a good time there,
Exactly.
right?
Right?
I haven't had a
Absolutely.
good vacay in a
Absolutely.
while, so